All right. Well, Logan and I just got back from an amazing trip. It's pretty crazy. One of my best friends, Drishti, was getting married in Udaipur, India in December of 2025. And we looked at how long it was going to take to get there. It was going to be like something like a 30, 40-hour continuous travel experience. So we thought it could be a great opportunity to break up the travel and as well as like the time adjustments by tacking on a trip before and after the wedding, which was the main event. And especially given that the wedding was around the holidays, so I already had some time off from work that I could take advantage of in addition to having to take some PTO. So it ended up working out really well. We took our time considering different location options and ended up deciding on Egypt and France in addition to the wedding in India. We bought travel books, watched YouTube videos, and did other research to get prepared for the trip. Logan made this amazing travel guide that included history on each country and the sites we'd be visiting. That was great. We spent some time getting our outfits together for all the various events. We even got a bunch of vaccines, including the rabies shot. So we'd be ready to go no matter what could be thrown our way. Before we knew it, it was time to take off. So our first part of the trip was Egypt. On Friday, December 12th and Saturday, December 13th, we had our big travel day. So we went from our little apartment in Sandy Springs, Georgia, to MARTA to the airport. We were on a bus, then the train, and then back on the bus in order to get to the international terminal. And our first flight, we flew from the Atlanta airport to Istanbul on Turkish Air. Turkish Air is known for their great food. Logan, did you like their food?
Loved their food. It's great.
Yeah, he liked their food. I told them I had a peanut allergy, and I guess I was supposed to tell them beforehand, so I just got a ton of fruit, but the fruit was great. One other thing I noted is that all of the flight attendants were beautiful, and ours in particular looked like she was a runway model, so that was pretty crazy. So yeah, then we got to the Turkey airport, which was a great, very nice airport. And we had a little bit of a layover there, only a couple hours before we headed the rest of the way to Cairo was our next stop or next kind of transfer to our final destination, Luxor. And in the Turkey airport, Logan and I got separated for like 5 minutes, and it was the first time that I ever tried to use data roaming on my phone in an international country. So I thought like I didn't even know if it was gonna work, and I was thought, okay, that's it. I'll never see Logan ever again. But then literally 30 seconds later, I saw him, and I said, okay, we've got this, and it worked out great. So we flew from Istanbul to Cairo and then Cairo to Luxor. And then we got in pretty late at Luxor, probably like what, midnight. It was going to be a little bit earlier, but we just had like a small hour flight delay. And our taxi driver, who we booked on Viator, he was looking out for us and he stayed late even though our flight got a bit delayed. So he was able to bring us to the hotel, which was great. We had a late check-in, but it was really nice to be able to go to sleep right away. That was a good way for us to kind of like adjust to the time change. Our hotel was very nice. It was a Hilton hotel. It was right on the Nile River, and it had a lot of pretty holiday decorations. So we were happy that we made it there after a long, long travel day. Yeah. Any other thoughts?
No, not on the night. Yeah, not on the traveler or the night.
Okay. So then on December 14th, we woke up to a beautiful view outside our hotel room of a view of the Nile. We were on the east side of the Nile, is where our hotel was, and that was kind of the plan for this day was that we were going to do the east side of the Nile River in Luxor. So our first stop with our first guide in Egypt was the Karnak Temple Complex. Some cool things that were here is there was a lot of ram-headed sphinxes that were just like still in really, really great quality, even though they're thousands of years old. So that was pretty cool. There's also these massive columns that have these beautiful engravings of hieroglyphics and designs, and it still have a good amount of color on them despite how old they are. There's also a pretty cool obelisk in the middle of the complex. Logan, do you want to talk a little bit about how Egypt Egyptians used obelisks?
Yeah, so yeah, one I don't know exactly what all they used it for, but I know one thing that I've heard is that they could calculate the circumference of the Earth based on they have had an obelisk in Luxor and they had an obelisk near Cairo, and they could measure the shadows, and based on the difference of the shadows at noon, they could give a rough estimate for what they thought how big the Earth was, and it was pretty close to what we know to be today.
And another cool thing I thought from our trip was there's this picture of us in front of a man-made lake because our guide was just talking about how they have this high dam now. I think it was built like relatively recently, like in the 2000s, right? Something like that. And the high dam can control the Nile's flooding now. So as you can imagine, like the size of the Nile drastically changed over time, causing some of these temples that we visited to flood, which would sometimes erase the engravings because these temples are made out of sandstone and they're pretty sensitive to kind of like the elements. But it's amazing how like kind of higher up you can still see a lot of it is intact. Any thoughts on the Karnak temple?
Um, no, just making sure we've got the um, I guess one thing I could say about the obelisk is that one of the primary obelisks that were built was by Queen Hatshepsut, and her nephew or son or whoever succeeded her was trying to kind of diminish her impact on the community, and so he built up uh, buildings around her obelisk so that it would be less useful to the community.
Yeah, that was kind of like a theme, right? That a
Yeah.
lot of times a new pharaoh would come to power and they'd destroy stuff or try to like erase cartouches, right? To kind of make it be like they're in charge now, forget about the old people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So after the Karnak temple, our guide then took us to the Luxor temple. Another really cool thing about that at the front of it is again an obelisk. And what we didn't realize until our tour, pretty much, was that there, this obelisk is one of a pair, and the other pair is actually in Paris, France, which is where we ended our trip. It's the Place des Concorde. So it was so cool that we got to see both twins. Apparently, Egypt had given it to him as a gift, and they, in turn, they got a gift that was like a clock tower, but the clock never really worked. So they might have gotten the rough end of that deal.
Yeah. And we saw that clock as well. That was in uh, the Citadel.
Yep.
So the
Yep. Yeah, so that was like the sights for our first day. Our guide also had us look at a papyrus shop, so it's cool. We got to learn how they harvest the plant and how they kind of use crisscross of little strips of paper, and then it's kind of, I don't know if cured is the right word, but just dries and becomes a very strong paper-like thing to be able to write on or do art on. So that was kind of cool to see how that was done as well.
Do you want to talk about their Excel file that we saw?
Yeah.
So when we were walking through, this was at the Karnak Temple Complex. Um, we walked by and saw some engravings in the sandstone, and he said this is how they kept track of the agriculture, I believe, maybe. And so he knew how what each of the signs meant. But yeah, we saw something that looked very similar to an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, so it was a really great first day in Luxor. After our tour kind of ended mid-afternoon, we were able to go back to the hotel, which again, super nice, like right on the Nile, beautiful views. You could just honestly vacation there and just hang out at the hotel. It'd be super nice. They had a restaurant at the hotel, and we got really, really good steak shawarmas. Logan had some pineapple juice, and I got some guava juice. when we were relaxing too, just because a long travel day and then a lot of walking on our feet to see these really cool sights. We also watched some TV, and it seemed like two of the cool things that were on there were just like soccer. Everyone in Egypt loves soccer, but then we also got to see some camel racing for the first time, at least from my perspective. Was that your
Yeah.
first time camel racing as well?
Yep.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. They're fast.
Yep.
And then we got a good night's sleep because we were very excited for the next day. On December 15th, we were going to tackle the west side of the Nile in Luxor. So we had a second guide from Viator, and the main part of this tour, although we saw a couple different sites, we started at the Valley of the Kings. So at the Valley of the Kings, there's a ton of tombs that have been discovered. And what was pretty crazy to me is that it seems like there might be more that could be discovered in the future. Like
Yeah.
they've done some scanning, but they just kind of need more funding to be able to try to get to stuff that they can see from the scanning, basically. So how it works now is they essentially rotate which tombs are open at a certain time. This helps preserve the tombs so they're not always accessible. And then of the ones that are open at any point in time, when you visit, you get to pick which 3 of them you want to see. So again, like not being able to go to 20 of them helps them preserve it, right? So our guide was pretty knowledgeable about the areas, so he suggested 3 for us, and they were all Ramses. So we had Ramses the First, Ramses the Third, and Ramses the Fourth are the tombs we got to see. So the Ramses the First, our guide kind of described it as small in size, but it's still like very colorful. Like it's amazing how old it is, but it still has so much of the detail. And then after that, we continued to progress Ramses third and the fourth. They were much bigger tombs where you had to like, there were multiple different rooms, like hallways, but again, super detailed. It's cool to see some of like the sarcophagus that are still there. Because a lot of these, like had the tomb raiders, so they don't have all the artifacts that would have been buried with them to help them assist them in the afterlife. Some of those might be in the museums we got to see later on, but it's just still amazing to see how they were decorated by the artisans. One other funny thing is that the people that work there, they'd kind of sit at the beginning of the tomb and they'd punch your card to be like, okay, they've gone into one of the 3 they can see. They'd all have their side hustles. They'd try to rent you a piece of cardboard because it can get kind of hot down there, or inside the tombs they'd offer to take your picture, all in the hopes for tips. So pretty ambitious group working there, which is great. So then after we were done with at the Valley of the Kings, we moved on to Hatshepsut. Hatshepsut's temple. I think the highlight for me for this was just like, it was cool to see how the temple like just blended in so well with the landscape like around it. It was just like, almost like it was meant to be there. It was very pretty. And yeah, it was kind of like, I guess I'd say like kind of similar to the other temples we saw, where you have large statues, detailed carvings of hieroglyphics and stuff. We also stopped at a alabaster shop where they kind of showed us how they take it from like the mountains to finishing it into like kind of souvenirs. We got to get involved a little bit, do some of the alabaster creation ourselves, and there was a lot of cool stuff, but we were kind of traveling light, so we didn't really buy anything, but it was nice to learn about how it was done. Next, our guide took us to the Valley of the Artisans. So we kind of got to see where they would live when they were working on the temples nearby. And they also had their own smaller tombs, like they're smaller uh, areas, but they were just like also very well decorated by the artisans themselves. They were like, hey, the rich people are doing this, maybe we should do this too. And then after that, we went to the Habu Temple. Also, just amazing, like how old all of these buildings are and how intricate all the decoration on them was from the engravings. Want to say anything about that,
Do
or
you ever talk about the Ankh or
you can say it.
anyway, there's you know, Egyptian hieroglyphics is phonetic, and so each symbol represents a sound, and so one of the symbols that is used is called the Ankh, and it's the key of life. And so a lot of people that go to Egypt will buy necklaces with the Ankh on it, and so yeah, we saw people wearing a necklace, I think in the London airport or the Paris airport, but it's something that that you'll see frequently in the U.S. that people that have been to Egypt will have that as a souvenir.
And the last part of the second day tour was the Colossi of Memnon. So these were just kind of large statues that lined up for people that would be like traveling through here. Is it to get to all the stuff we saw, or just Hatshepsut's temple? Yeah, but it was cool. There was like kind of a couple of them. We had pictures in front of one of them, but there were other versions of it farther back. And then we got back to our hotel. I think we had another steak shawarma, some more guava juice, some more pineapple juice. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Logan, I think, also treated himself. You had some ice cream or something?
Yeah.
Do you remember what kind?
It was like mango or
Yeah, nice. And then it was just like such a beautiful day. We were so happy to be warm in the sunshine. We decided to put on our swimsuits and take a little swim. It was great. Got to watch the sunset. It was awesome. We loved our time in Luxor. It's kind of like a more relaxed town, like just it's not a very populous place.
slower paced.
Slower paced, yeah, but people definitely go there to see some really cool stuff, and we're glad we were able to see it. So next morning on the 16th, we had a quick morning flight just getting us from Luxor back up to Cairo. Flight went well, a little bit of a bummer. The taxi we hired to pick us up from the Cairo airport, I think they were 2 or so hours late, so that was a little annoying, but we started to realize that maybe it was a little bit out of their hands because the traffic in Cairo is pretty freaking chaotic. Yeah, just a lot of cars and people kind of merge on their own wills. There's like lines, but you can kind of just drive in between them. And the good news is because of all that madness, I feel like typically you are driving slower than like versus in the States when you're staying in your lane, like, right, people are driving like 80 miles per hour or whatever. So I think we might have seen a few accidents while we were in Cairo, but they're going slower speeds, so it's not as life-threatening as some maybe in the States are. But it was definitely a little bit of an adjustment for our expectations because basically the airport is on, is it the south side or east? East. And then you drive through Cairo, cross the river Nile, get through Giza, and then our hotel was kind of on the other side of that. So it was cool on the way. We got to see like a lot of billboards that were kind of talking about like all the cool things that were around, like all the different pharaohs, artifacts were on billboards. And we got to see the Giza pyramids on the ride to the hotel. So we checked into our Hilton Pyramids Golf Hotel. We got a very nice room. It was probably the biggest room we had during our whole entire trip. It was great. And we had some free time that afternoon that wasn't scheduled, so we knew we wanted to go to the GEM, the Grand Egyptian Museum. So we were able to call an Uber and get there pretty easily. It is a very, very incredible museum. We were both, as we were walking in, just kind of blown away by the architecture and the design. We thought it was like perfect to match like the surrounding area of the pyramids. It had just opened in November of 2025, so we were amongst the first visitors, kind of like within the first 2 months of it being opened. we were pretty hungry when we arrived, and we knew there were going to be restaurants there. But yeah, there's super high quality restaurants and shops near the museum before you kind of like scanned in. So we ate, we got some pizza, right? Yeah. And then we scanned in and we got to see in some really amazing artifacts. It also has a bunch of different floors, like really great views of the Giza pyramids. That was beautiful. We got able to take some pictures there. Another highlight of the museum is it has the full King Tutankhamun collection. I thought it was cool to see how basically it's kind of like nesting dolls, right? Like they had King Tut had three coffins and like three shrines, and then the sarcophagus, and they all kind of just like stacked on top of each other, and they were all there. So that was kind of cool for me to understand that. And they're all just like so ornate and everything and beautiful. I think one of the most crowded areas of the museum was a large crowd surrounding the golden burial mask of King Tut. There was also another separate building that kind of housed two boats. I think it was King Khufu's boats, is what they called the building or the exhibition. But basically, these are the boats that they would travel the Nile on, which was very cool to see, like how big they were and everything, and how they were made out of wood. Logan, would you say you think it's the best museum in the world?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, outrageous. Yeah, how nice it was. I think that was the place that I said wow the most.
Yeah, it's pretty good. But this was kind of the first day because we had such an early morning flight that our phones kind of started to get low battery on us. I tried to call an Uber to get us out of there, but I don't like because Logan got an Uber, no problem. I don't know if he's just more I don't know, it doesn't scream tourist, but my profile screamed tourist, so it was hard to get an Uber out of there. Everyone just wanted to extra money outside of the Uber app, and we didn't really know. It probably would have been fine for us to do that, but we didn't know what the norm was. So we ended up just getting an Uber back or a taxi back to the hotel with just people standing outside of the museum saying they were taxis. So we just agreed on the price and we were able to go. And it was kind of interesting to be like, he wanted our contact information because they want repeat business to bring us to the next place. So they're like super hospitable and everything. So we made it back, got a good night's sleep, and then we were very excited for the next day on December 17th. We had our third guide that we booked to see the pyramids of Giza, which is really cool. Is that probably the highlight of the trip for you, Logan? Yeah. At the pyramids of Giza, we got to ride camels and ATVs. We were also able to climb up the pyramid at a certain section. You're able to climb up a bit, which is cool. Like I didn't even realize that that would be the case and that you could like touch them and climb them a little bit. Super cool. We also got to see the Sphinx that guards the pyramids. And while we were there, we ran into some school tours from towns that were more outside the city. And they don't see foreigners in their towns. So then they saw us, the girls would say hello to me and take pictures of me. And one girl even said, "Hello, I love you." And I felt like Princess Diana. It was like really funny, just because they'd never seen people that looked like us before. And then it was funny, Logan was passing some young boys and he started giving one of them a high five. And the next thing you know, the whole line wanted a high five. So he just got a bunch of high fives from the guys, and it was really cute. It was a really good time at the pyramids. I think Logan was shocked just the scale of it, right?
Yeah, it's massive.
And just how old it is.
Yeah. Yeah, 4,500 years old.
Yeah.
Did you already talk about camels?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's say we're closer to Jesus than Jesus is to the pyramids.
Yeah.
Puts it into perspective how massive they are.
Yeah.
Then our guide brought us to a really yummy dinner. Lunch. We had some chicken and rice for lunch. He also took us to visit an essential oils shop and a jewelry store. So we bought some white lotus oil, which is
Continue.
the main flower of India and Egypt. It was pretty cool, the connection there. And then Logan at the jewelry store got an awesome cartouche keychain. So on one side of it, it has his name, and on the other side of it, it has my name. Very romantic.
Yeah. You should talk about your ATV experience.
Okay, let's double click on the ATV experience. So, yeah, I just never drove an ATV before, and I think I thought it was like a motorcycle where I had to like turn the handles or something. Like, but all it really was is I just had to put my finger on like this thing and it would go. So
Yeah.
like it was really easy to use. But kind of when we first got there, we were kind of like, oh, like can me and Logan go on the same one? Because I was like, Logan seemed to know how to ride ATVs. He rode them growing up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they were like, no. But the guy, whoever like the ATV store guy was just like the super nice, like young kid. How old do you think he was? Like 18 or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he just sat on the front of mine and he was helping me like steer and decide how fast I'm going to like brake given the circumstances. Because like, I don't know, in my head, I think we kind of thought, oh, we'll just pick up the ATVs like in the deserty area that we'll be riding in them. But no, we got them at the store and then we kind of had to go through the actual roads, right, to get there. So I was glad I had the guy on my hand. Logan said he was behind us, following us. He was saying a couple times in his head, he's like, oh, Kristen's not going to like that. So probably it was like fine the way there. I was like, this is crazy. And we had a lot of fun, like driving around and everything. It was good. But then on the way back, we were kind of just going on the main road and there was horses coming out from a side. I felt like we were kind of like far apart, but we could definitely hear each other. And the horses very quickly came out of the alley and they were kind of like spooked, whether it was the ATVs or something else spooked them. So a guy ended up like literally falling off his horse and then his foot was caught in the stirrup for like a minute. So he was dragged for like probably like 10 seconds or something, like not great. But he got up, seemed like he was okay. But yeah, it was kind of drama. And then the next thing you know, I'm on the ATV going the wrong way against the road, like because basically we couldn't go on the right side with traffic and then like turn around on a U-turn, like that wouldn't have been good. So what we did is we just went based on our guide's expertise to get us back to where we needed to go. He steered us to go against traffic, but it was only like 50 yards of doing that. And it wasn't like a super trafficked area. I mean, it wasn't super chill either, but yeah. So that was a little interesting, but we felt alive. And we got some really great pictures. It was fun.
Yep. Okay.
And then our guide brought us back to the hotel. We were able to like freshen up. And then we had same company, but a different guide picked us up to go take us on a Nile cruise.
Yep.
So there was some performers, two gentlemen in these little skirt things that were great at spinning. So they were on for like about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And then the next act was a belly dancer, and she was fabulous doing her belly dancing. But as you can imagine, 20 minutes of belly dancing is a lot for a crowd that's just like staring at you. So she was desperately trying to get people to come up and dance with her, basically, but she was getting turned down left and right?
Yeah.
Until some poor sucker named Kristen Brown got sucked up there. So I tried to have fun with it. It was fun. And she was very nice and she was very happy and grateful that I went up there.
Yeah.
I got some hearts from her.
Yeah.
What did you think about my belly dancing, Logan?
It was great.
Yeah. We got some food on the cruise. It was kind of like, it was okay. I feel like we had better food elsewhere, but it's okay. But it was nice to be on the ship. They kind of asked around where everyone was from. People were from like literally all over. Like we were one of two people from like the US, basically. People from India, France,
Japan.
right? The UK, Japan. Yeah, really all over. It was pretty cool. And then kind of at the end, they were just like dancing and playing music. So Logan and I danced for a while and it was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we fought traffic a little bit more to get back to our hotel. And then we didn't have anything necessarily booked for the next day, but we liked the travel company we worked with the day before. So we said, hey, like if we were going to do something tomorrow, what would you recommend? And they made suggestions of what we hadn't seen yet. So then on December 18th, we had another guide, but they were working with the same company. who took us to a few sites before bringing us to the airport so we could go on our way to India. So, Logan, do you want to walk us through what we saw?
Sure. Yeah, we went to the Citadel, which was built by Saladin, who's most famous for his involvement in the Crusades. He's kind of the protagonist a lot of in a couple of the Crusades, and he built this citadel to protect the city from invaders at the time. And within the citadel, there is a mosque called the Muhammad Ali Mosque, and it was built in the 1800s, and its architecture is very similar to the Blue Mosque, which is a mosque that I've been to in Istanbul. So it was pretty cool. And so yeah, he let us have some time at the Blue Mosque or at the Muhammad Ali Mosque. He told us a story about um, kind of Muhammad Ali and what he had done to acquire power in Egypt and his ominous downfall. What would you say?
Yep.
It's kind of a rough story. Then we had asked to go to the Coptic church. And so every time I would say Coptic church, he would say, "Oh, Old Cairo. You want to go to Old Cairo?" Well, we didn't really know what else there was, but he took us to Old Cairo and dropped us. The driver dropped us off with the guide. We walked through, and the first thing that we went to was the Hanging Church, and so it's very pretty. It's got a lot of murals that we took pictures of, and then we went to Saint Mark's Coptic Orthodox Church. And so the Egyptian Christians are very proud that in the Gospel of Matthew that Jesus, Mary, and Joseph left Bethlehem and they went to Egypt and spent some time in Egypt. So um, yeah, the people are very proud of that, and so there's a lot of artwork about that time in Jesus's life. So spent some time there. He told us some stories about the church, and then we went to the Civilization Museum, which was the primary thing that the guide from the previous day had recommended that we go see. I thought we should have, based on the little research that I had done over the last few years, my head was that we needed to go to an older museum in downtown Cairo. And when I told him that that's what I wanted to do, he said no. He said everything that you would want to see has been moved to the Civilization Museum. So he said all the mummies that you're thinking of are no longer there. You need to go to the Civilization Museum. So then we finished, I think, our uh, guided tour with this new guide at the Civilization Museum. It seems like it's brand new. It's very nice. There's a lot of cool, it's much smaller than the gym, but definitely worth seeing. So there's a lot of stuff on the first floor, I think roughly in chronological order. You kind of work your way, you walk in, and then to the right, there's the older stuff talking about Egyptians living in caves. And then you walk counterclockwise, and time passes. And then all the way to your left is the Islamic period. And so, yeah, we spent some time walking through all of the ancient Egyptian uh, historic stuff. And then I think we went downstairs to maybe their basement and we saw all of the mummies that they have there. Unfortunately, we did not take any pictures there. Photography is not allowed down there. They've got these mummies basically in the dark with very little light to help uh, preserve them. But yeah, it's interesting. We had seen, buildings that were commissioned by Hatshepsut and Ramses II and Tutmosis III and all of these, very famous Egyptian leaders. And then we kind of ended the trip with seeing those Egyptian leaders in person. And, when you look at their hieroglyphics and, their murals, um, they kind of portray themselves as very big, very strong military leaders, and then you see them, and the guys are 5'5" to 5'7", and the girls are 4'11" to 5'2", pretty small people, but they were able to, do great things. And so, yeah, I thought it was just, very interesting just to kind of see, even these people that have done so much in life they end up where everyone ends up. So yeah, it was a very cool kind of capstone to Egypt. And then he took us to the airport.
Yep. Yeah, no, it was a great time in Egypt. A lot of good guides, saw a lot of cool stuff. So I know Egypt is on the top of Logan's bucket list, and I always thought it'd be cool to see the pyramids and stuff. But can you talk a little bit more about what your drive was to want to see Egypt?
Um, yeah, I think just I think just growing up I think I don't know if it's comes from a religious home or just a Western home. I think in the United States they kind of talk about the founding fathers and what they were looking at, and they were looking at um, Greece and Rome as kind of their pattern for a successful, stable government. And when you study Greece and Rome, they were always looking at Egypt. That Egypt was just this like uh, their example for everything, for architecture, for art, um, and so yeah, like the Greek columns, they're mimicking the Egyptian columns. Just everything that they're doing, they're trying to copy this great civilization uh, in Egypt, and so and then also from a religious aspect, you read the Old Testament, and it's one of the powers that Israel is having to navigate around. And then you read, you go to college and you take ancient civilization, and it's the primary, ancient civilization that they start with. It's like, all right, we were hunters and gatherers, and then boom, Egypt, sprang out of nowhere. And so it's just kind of this amazing civilization that kind of you hear about when studying American history, when studying religion, when studying ancient history. Like it just keeps coming up. And so it's kind of the first chapter of um, every like history course that I've ever taken. And so, yeah, definitely wanted it to, it's, definitely was on the, at the top of the bucket list.
I'm glad you went.
Yeah, amazing.
It was really great.
Yeah.